How y'all doing? We're just chilling out tonight. Been getting ready to go in the morning. We got a few little projects going on. But we got some new things coming to the channel. I'm trying to figure out what people want to see and do things of that nature. And so I'm really kind of wondering what your guys' input's going to be on some of this. I'm really interested. We got I've had a lot of good help so far. Lots of good ideas. So been trying to get this light bar working. It was cut out of the car, and I have no idea where all of these lights go. This is obviously your main power, but then you got lights to go left, slow lights to go right. But then you can put them together and make them do all sorts of weird things. Probably ought not to do that. I'm gonna give somebody a seizure. Uh, but so some of the channel changes I'm wanting to make to the channel. I've been thinking about where to go with it. I'd like to do some more business wise, a little more history stuff. I'm kind of really wanting to move off, not in another direction, but start talking about more of the business side like I do. I like a little bit of the history stuff and whatnot. But I'm also interested in doing projects on the truck, stuff that guys can do in the truck stops themselves with minimal tools and just things like that that can make their lives better. Just all the little nuances that they never teach you in driving school. I'd like to talk more about stuff like that. Um, I do I know I'm a little more of an electrician than people like. I was thinking about doing a video on how to make a wiring harness, but I don't know if anybody would really be interested in that. Um, but I did do a neat video the other day. Be coming out in a couple of days. Well, that's new. And I got a neat radio from another YouTuber. All right, that's enough of that. So this works. I got a really neat CB radio from another YouTuber because he saw my video on old school CBs. Put that right there. And he sent me this. This is a classic Pace from the 70s, and I've already cleaned it up. I've already done a video on it. And it works. So did a great video on that, and that was a lot of fun exploring these old school CB radios. Any questions and comments and whatnot, my ears are open. I don't trying to figure out how this all this chat works, but so this is my very first live I've ever done, so I guess we'll see how that works. So we got see, what am I planning on doing here? Well, I'm planning on doing some more financial videos about trying to make your dollar stretch a little further in trucking. Anymore right now, it's not just about making more, it's about keeping more of what you make, and that's been a real big problem, because why we make a lot of money on paper, we really don't bring home as much as people think. These are all tax books here, and I got a bunch more in there from, well, me working for the last 30 plus years. And, you know, it's a complicated, it's complicated. Well, it's not as complicated as one would think, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's very stressful and confusing. And I'd like to discuss some of that one of these days here soon. Talking about business and whatnot. What is that? Oh, I had somebody give me this. It's all written in Chinese, but apparently it's a thing to hold your phone. It actually is kind of nice, and it's made out of metal. It's not. What's funny is it's from China, and it was brought back from China by somebody I know, and yet it's actually more durable than the stuff they send us. So they keep the good stuff over there, and they send us the junk. But as for the business aspect of what I'm wanting to do is talk more about understanding your mileage, understanding your rate, your surcharge, and things of that nature. I think it's important. I really do want to hear people's feedback on, what their experiences is and what they're making and what I don't need to know any real numbers. But I am curious about what the industry average really is. They tell us all these things, but I really truly believe they're doing it off gross numbers, not net numbers. You can make 600,000 a year in this game and maybe only get to keep 150 of it after taxes and fuel and bills and all that. So I am curious about that, and what people do out here to save money. Now, I know you guys cook in your trucks and this and that, but, like, how do you stop and what do you do when you stop and how do you get, your needs met and things of that nature? Because, just the basic needs, I'm not talking anything dirty. So we can stop that conversation right there. That'll get us all in trouble. But aside from that, I really don't have a whole lot. We're just sitting here in the back room tonight working on some projects, and we got, like I said, I've got a stack of CB radios I was going through, and I came across this 8-track player, but I don't have needs a special plug for the back, and I have no idea where to even get one of those. So what I'd probably have to do is take it all apart and figure out which was positive and negative and run it. I could probably get it to work. I actually know where there's a bunch of 8-tracks for sale right now. And guys actually got blank 8-tracks that have never been opened, which I think is kind of cool. But well, this may be a project for another day. I've got a couple of classic cars we could do that in. But thinking about doing a video on I heard a lot of guys talking about the CDL and deregulation and all that, and I really don't take a lot of that talk seriously when it's coming from a 28-year-old kid who got his license 3 weeks ago. If you actually look at the guys that were driving before deregulation, they're in their 60s and 70s now. And I only know one guy, in fact, right now that I'm friends with who was driving before deregulation, and he was driving out in California back in the 70s. And, so it's an interesting talk. It's going to be, if I ever do a video on that, it's going to be just mainly historical. It's not going to have any I'm not going to lean politically one way or another. That's been done enough. That's part of why I don't talk about politics on this channel. Is everybody from all walks of life drive truck, and politics while it plays a huge, it plays a lot into our business. We get enough of it everywhere we turn lately, and I'd just rather not bring it into this channel just because we get enough of it. It doesn't matter which side you're on here. We're all truck drivers, and this is kind of where I was getting to that. We all fight the same fight. We all drive trucks, and we all do the same thing. And we're all just trying to muddle our way through this and make it to the next paycheck. And so that right there is why I just not wanting to have too much division on this channel over something that's really not all that important in the general scheme of things for what we're doing here. I mean, it is important, but not on this channel. As for that, like I said, I'm going to do some more business related videos here talking about, basically understanding your rate and what you're making per mile. And, and I've talked a bit about mileage versus percentage. And everybody who knows me knows I am purely a percentage guys after working mileage for a long time. And if you're making it on mileage, that's great. The last company I was with, I was not. I did the math one time because I got an A in math, when not a lot of people believe that, but I figured out that with the rates, what they are, because I did find out what the rates were, what the fuel surcharge was, and what I was getting paid. And I figured out I was running for 25 to 30% of the load, and I was getting maybe 50% of the fuel surcharge. And that's just, they're like, well, we're paying you all miles run, and we're paying you the tags and the permits and the tolls and all that. And truthfully, when I add it up for what I pay per year, not only is it a great tax write-off, it really doesn't justify the amount of money that they're taking from me. I know there's a lot of companies right now that are docking drivers for reefer fuel. That's ridiculous. It's not my load. It's not my trailer. I'm pulling your trailer. You're going to pay for the fuel. You're paying me. Why am I paying you part of my fuel surcharge to fill your trailer up? I don't agree with that. To tell you how lopsided it was, what was it? My gross number, I'll just tell you, I ran 109,000 miles a year before last. Grossed almost 2 3/4 before. That was my gross, not my net, before everything else. Took 90 days off that year and still averaged, all in, I was averaging $250 a mile. So that's, for the guys that are out running around here saying that there's no money out here, there is money out here. It's just, who are you doing it for? And there's a lot of talk about the load boards and all that, and that's something that I've been thinking about diving into. But in a nutshell, I don't blame the brokers for anything, because, well, they've been putting it out this cheap for the last 20 years. We were just smart enough 20 years ago not to jump on it 30 seconds after it hits the board. Let it sit on there for 3 or 4 days, let them get desperate, and that price goes way up. There's just a lot of bottom feeders out there, and that really has a negative effect on the industry as a whole, because every time we manage to wash a bottom feeder out, there's 2 more that take its place. But the way the freight market's looking right now and all that, and there's going to be a readjustment here soon, and it's starting to crash. It is. So I would highly recommend not buying any more chrome for a while. And, you might have to work a little more and all that, but just watch your P's and Q's, and don't turn down as much as, if you watch my videos, you know, I talk about a lot of loads I don't like. And it sounds like that I'm turning down loads left and right. I am not. There's very few loads I actually turn down. Because I know with the dispatchers where I work, it's not personal at all. They got freight to move and they need guys to move it. And a lot of the loads that I never turn it, well, I very rarely ever turn it down a load for pay. It's usually for all the extenuating circumstances surrounding the load. Some of these places where some of these customers are just absolutely horrid. And usually the one thing that'll always get me to turn down a load is parking. Is there on-site parking? Is there parking nearby? And if there's not, I just don't. A lot of these, there's one particular meat packing company that I haul for from time to time. Not as much as you'd think. But my deal with the company is if it's loaded, I'll go get it. But if it's not loaded and they're giving you an arbitrary time to go pick it up, I'm not going. If I'm going to sit, it's going to be my decision to sit. I'm not going to sit there, start my clock, drive over there, and then have to sit 10 or 15 hours because they're not getting the load out on time. And lately, this company has had a horrible reputation of doing that. So that's kind of where we're at, you know, with some of those. Parking is a big thing. I get on a lot of guys on some of my messages, and I get a lot of flack for this, and I guess you could say understandably so. It is about parking at truck stops. Now, don't get me wrong, A1 Towing has been busy in Mississippi because they get run out of Arkansas and Memphis, but so you have to be very careful about where you're parking down there. They are a predatory company, and I know one guy in particular has had a run-in with them, and it's been bad. But when I talk about parking, now I could do a whole thing on predatory towing, and it's a common thing, especially down in Georgia. With there's a company down there called Buckhead Parking Enforcement, and I think everybody was using that. It was any nerd with a with a car and a boot and a business card was running down there doing that, and that was a scam. But they were running to all these Walmarts and booting them right there in the Walmarts, and that was the big thing down in Georgia. Now, A1 is telling you that if you park into one of their lots, which are not clearly marked, you have to pay them through an app on the phone. And I'm not paying a towing company to park in a lot they don't own. So, yeah. But part of what I've been talking about with parking is, you know, a lot of these guys are getting mad at me when I tell them that truck stops are private property. In fact, parking enforcement in a truck stop is the cops won't even come out unless there's a problem. I have talked to corporate, like at the Pilot, and I don't care what the manager tells you. The manager on duty can call a tow truck anytime, for any reason, for anything he deems necessary. And I got that straight from Pilot Corporate. So if they ever tell you, if you bought a spot online and they won't tow a guy out, and they're saying, oh, you know, you got, we got to get corporate. No, they don't. They have permission already. That's what it is. Well, hey, Junkyard Mo, he comments on a bunch of my videos. But yeah, they have permission already, and all of these companies have a blanket permission to basically tow as they see fit. Now, getting them to do it is something completely different. And I remember talking to one guy; he'll just actually call the tow company and send the tow company out, and they'll snag it and drag it out. But if you're going to charge to park, you need to enforce those spots. That's just all I'm saying. I think the thing that made me mad about that whole experience was I forced them to give me my money back when they wouldn't tow the guy out. And I called up Pilot Corporate and told them that, and they were more mad about the guy giving me my money back than anything else. I got my money back, and I parked on the curb. I at that point I didn't care, but
So
but when it comes to paid parking, I guess it's just up to the discretion of the where paid parking started was a lot of these small independent guys were using their truck stops just as equipment dumps. Fort Wayne Travel Plaza got real bad about that about 10, 15 years ago. There was a company out of Kentucky, flatbed company, that just decided that was their lot. They started blocking spots with their cars. And I remember counting, there was probably, I've counted over 24 drop trailers, if I remember. There was a bunch of their cars. They literally had taken over a third to half of the truck stop. You just couldn't get in there anymore. And I was talking to the manager on duty there at the time about that, and I guess they weren't spending a dime there. They were just using it as their drop lot. So that's a problem, and that's where a lot of this started. If you're going to have a company, you need to have a place to park your equipment. The truck stop just isn't your spot, and it's a double-edged sword, because we come in there and we see all these drop trailers and we see all these day cabs and stuff parked there, and we will agree these people need a place to park, because truthfully, it's not the driver's. For the most part, it's not the driver's fault. They're being told there. A lot of these company guys are being told to do that, but it's such a double-edged sword, and I got real mixed feelings about it. But I think if you're going to have paid spots like the TA and the Pilot and Flying J and the Petro, you need to enforce them. No ifs, ands, or buts, because it's got to be either all or nothing. And if you're going to flake out, all you're going to do is just damage your credibility with the general public, and then chaos ensues, because what ends up happening is the general public just, if they know you're not going to enforce it, these guys just come through and they just tear the place up. I did run into one of the scams there at the TA. If you're going to go to a TA and get a spot at night, this happened in Atlanta, and I'm pretty sure the gals got fired for doing this. They're selling spots, basically selling spots for cash. You need to get 2 receipts at the TA. Get the long one with all your info, and the regular receipt that goes in the window. Well, the long one goes in the window, and the short one goes in your records. They were just giving the short receipt, and I know they were going back in and canceling it out and taking the cash back out, because that's a scam that, well, is older than time. And it's amazing how many of these people think they invented these scams. But yeah, you're 22 years old and you're an evil criminal genius. But if you go in there, you make sure you get all the receipts that way, because if they go in and sell you a spot and you're in there, and a guy goes in there and actually buys that spot and the place is sold out, and they oversold the spots, that's a problem. And if you're not supposed to be there legitimately, legally, you'd have to move, even though they took your money. And that's not a good place to be. So just make sure that you get those right. So what else? Like I said, we're not doing Power Tour this year. There are scams everywhere. I was going to do Power Tour this year, and I was hoping they would start it off in Bristol, because usually they start off where they left off the last year. And I was going to go out there and go see a buddy of mine in Virginia, real old friend of mine. And I was going to do Tail of the Dragon and film it all through the Appalachians and the Shenandoah Valley and all that. I thought it'd be really cool. They decided to start it off in Bowling Green, Kentucky this year. And I saw the route, and I've done that in my truck. And it's just, to me, it's just boring. And besides, I got plenty of things to keep me busy this year. And I need to get the car running not this year, but next year. I'm hoping to take the Torino on a power tour, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to have to get the front end rebuilt for that, and then have the back end gone through. I figure probably it's expensive. I don't know how much it's going to cost me. Probably $5-6 grand to get that car lined out. But it's a good car to run, and it'll be fun on power tour. So, and I'll make videos on that. As for the Crown Vics, I've been thinking about selling them and starting on some other projects here soon. But getting back to trucking, I've actually been thinking about doing a truck stop video, and I have a radar unit that will mount in a car or in the truck. It's a self-contained unit. This is a who is this? It's a Decatur, first gen Decatur, and I was actually thinking about putting this in the semi truck so I could do a video, just show people what's actually going on in the truck stop. A lot of guys aren't paying attention, and I know why. When a lot of trucks went to automatic, guys are driving them like they're cars, and so they're not paying attention to what they're doing. They're just putting it to the floor and scooting through the truck stop. And if they would be paying more attention, this guys get hit in truck stops all the time. I don't care what anybody says, but it happens a lot. So yeah, this is something I was thinking about, hooking this up in the semi truck, and mainly to show you guys how fast guys really are driving through truck stops, and maybe to screw with bull haulers, but we'll talk about that later. Let me put this somewhere. If I get a little extra money saved up, I would like to start doing some more truck stop videos, and I found a little drone setup that'll fit in the truck. It's not like the drone I bought. That was interesting. I haven't quite figured that one out, but this is a little DJI that folds up about this big, and it'll be perfect size to put in the truck, and then I can start shooting some aerial shots from the truck stops and whatnot. And I think that'd be really cool to start doing some truck stop crawl videos and show, some of these different truck stops and whatnot, just all over the country. We get to some pretty cool ones every now and then. Get some pretty dumpy ones too. I have been looking for, I've got some old guides that I'm looking for from back in the old 76 days. So I've been trying to find that. Now I was driving when the 76 was still around. So remember my first time going out to Ontario, and we pulled into off Milliken there, and it was 76 on the west and the TA on the east, and we pulled into the TA, and that was an experience. That was a real experience. But a lot of those truck stops down there have changed a lot. We used to go down, there used to be one in Colton. There was a truck stop down at Colton. There was another one. There was one out in Riverside, Colton. There was two over there on Cherry Street. I think the Little Sisters is still around, or Three Sisters, or whatever it is down there. But on the north side, there used to be one called Truck Town. And Trucktown was a pretty rough place, but had a great restaurant. There's a bar across the street if you wanted to go there. But basically, y'all always wanted to park up front on the pavement in the spots. That way, you didn't get your truck broke into or didn't get anything tore up. About once, I remember there, lady said 3 times that week they'd towed things out of the back that had been stolen and stripped. But Trucktown is long gone. Had a lot of fun there. But yeah, we have a lot of some of these old guides here, like some of these from way back in the day. I used to get one every year. This is 2010. Trying to 11, 12, 13, 14, 08, 05. Let's look at the 05. The TA at 76 was gone by then. But I wanted to say I had one from 02. But me and a buddy of mine, there used to be 2 TA truck stops in Georgia, and we're trying to figure out where the second one was. And we think it was in Adairsville, because there was the one there in not Calhoun. Oh, it'll come to me in a flash. But Cartersville, and up the road a ways, like maybe 8-10 miles. It seems to me there was another one, but for the life of me, we can't figure out where it was. But I think it's what it was either the All-American or Patty's that was the TA, but I can't figure it out for all of you old timers. But yeah, I go through these books, not so much anymore, but I used to carry these in the truck all the time. And of course, you know, when I used to run up and down the West Coast, you know, used to stop and well, like up here in Petaluma, there used to be a truck stop we used to stop at, and was Port Petroleum, and that's gone now. And South San Francisco, there used to be a Flying J there, and that's gone now. But Rialto, that was the one I was trying to think of. Rialto was one of the truck stops. You had Colton, Rialto, Fontana, and Ontario, and then there was a bunch of little truck stops all around the LA metro area, if you knew where they were. Most of them were local, but like there's one down here in Wilmington, Carson, Long Beach, and there's a couple out in Vernon, and Bandini Brothers. They're still around, but that's, yeah, I think since they closed Farmer John's down out in LA, that's kind of gone. Yeah, LA was one of those weird places that if you it's like any other big city. If you got used to it and kind of figured out the ebb and flow of it, there's a lot there. There was scales everywhere. There was places to fuel everywhere. There was just, it's a weird place, but it's kind of interesting. Chicago is the same place like that. Oh yeah, I got an old sewing machine. That's a 1910 Singer. It's the first year that when it went from A&A machine to Singer. That's the first year, and I tried to sell it a dozen times, but nobody wants to give me anything for it, so it sits up there. But yeah, they it's an interesting machine because it's covered in gold leaf, and that's the only reason I keep it. So yeah, it's very ornate, and it's a real piece of art, so I think that's why I like it. But yeah, you know, back in the day, like going into Chicago and all that, like you said, if you got used to it, if you start running it like a local and you start talking to a lot of people around the area, there was a lot of different ways you get around without using the tolls. There's a lot of faster ways around town. Little places to park, hidey holes, stuff like that. And of course, you know, you disappear for 4 or 5 years and everything changes. But if you stay current with it, I mean, it's yeah, you can really maximize what you're doing. So yeah, used to do a lot, and we had my last company. We had a terminal in Hammond, so I was up there a lot, and there's a lot more up there than you realize. I never did a lot in New York City. I've been there a few times, but you know, it was just Hunts Point. So, and I drove through there a few times, going out to Rhode Island or Connecticut, up to Massachusetts, stuff like that. But if I could drive around it, I would. And mainly it was just because the GW Bridge was so expensive. What is it up to? For me in my truck without my pre-pass, it is $119 for me now, just to go across that one bridge. So that sucks. But yeah, that really sucks. But I mean, it's all that way. I was talking to some people at my company about going out east, and I said I don't have a problem with it. I made a lot of money going out to Jersey and back. And Jersey's another one of those places that if you get used to it, it's not as horrible as people make out. A lot of the people that complain about this kind of stuff have never been there, and they had an uncle that got mugged or something like that. But compared to New York City, Jersey's a Jersey's a wonderland. But you know, you get out of the city into rural New Jersey. It's absolutely beautiful out there. Remember coming out of Philadelphia, you going across the bridge and you get on old Highway 40, and it's really weird. There's a 40 will split, and there's a truck stop in the middle on US 40, and the minute you get around the other truck stop, look out, it's like suddenly you're just in the country. It's that quick. And rural New Jersey is absolutely stunningly beautiful. And upstate New York, and you get out in New York City, it's very, very nice up there. You know, I lived in Maryland. I was stationed in Maryland when I was in the military, and I was north of Baltimore. I loved it up there. New England's a beautiful place. The East Coast is a lot nicer than people let on. Driving a truck up there can be a hassle, but truthfully, I'd almost rather go to New Jersey than Miami. Yeah, done that, and that's a mess. You know, I would rather do the mix master in Houston every day of the week than go to Miami. It's not even a joke. There's no place to park, and people will cut your throat for a nickel. Especially if you're around a little Haiti. But that being said, you know, you start running in a lot of these places. It's not as bad as a lot of people make out. I mean, it is bad, some of these, but if you, is that a cat? I don't have a cat. If you, just pretty much learn what you're supposed to be doing and all that, you don't really have a problem. You won't have a problem. Just mind your P's and Q's and make sure you park in a good spot. And sometimes you have to start your clock. That's one thing I hate about e-logs is it's very unforgiving in a lot of different ways. They have made it a lot easier, which is ridiculous because it's starting to devolve back into what they were trying to get away from. It's their way of saying what we're doing didn't work. I've got my own theory on that. when I started driving, the rules were, of course, it was 70 hours a week or 70 hours in 8 days, 15 hours a day, 10 hours of driving, 8 hours off. And you could split your sleeper at 4 and 4 or 2 and 6, or as long as there was an even split. So what a lot of guys used to do is if they were driving and they were coming into rush hour, they would just pull over on an off ramp on the side of the road, 2:30, 3 o'clock, take a 4 hour nap. And by the time they're done, rush hour's done, and they'd boogie on past. And they'd have the rest of their clock to do it. And that really worked out. So what ended up happening was, and this is my own personal opinion, was when they went to 11 hours, 14, and 11 hours of driving, 10 hours off, 14-hour days, was they're like, well, we gave you an extra hour of driving. I said, well, yeah, but you took 3 more hours out of my day, and then they added a half-hour break. Now they took 3.5 hours out of my day. So I'm literally not driving any more miles than I ever did. That hour is completely inconsequential most of the time anyways. So what I believe the idea was back when they were proposing that and doing that, what they were trying to do and what the big companies were lobbying for at the time was team driving was starting to be a real big deal. So 11-11, that's 22 hours. You're like, well, that's not 24. Well, you got a half, you're going to be fueling, you're going to be stopping, you're going to be, that 2 hours is going to get eaten up really quick by 2 different guys. So theoretically, they could keep that truck running 24 hours a day. And I saw something on England, I guess, is doing that 3-bunk training truck now. To me, that's just absolutely insane. I'll bet that thing smells like an Indian curry market. Oh, I'll bet that truck stinks. I guess they put a bunk above the head now in that big open space. There's a bunk up there. And that's insane. Why would you do that? Got one guy training 2 people. That's just ridiculous. But aside from that, I've talked about training before, and I think there needs to be a revamp. But every time somebody says that, the way they want to revamp it is so counterproductive that it would actually, if they did revamp it, it would actually be worse. So I really don't understand. There's no easy way out of this at this point. All of the old timers that actually knew how to do something, most of them are gone, and they offered their services and offered to help and wanted to really. A lot of these guys genuinely did want to push the industry forward with a lot of positive training and whatnot. And these guys knew how to weed people out. And they were told, thank you, but no, we have a better idea. And what their better idea was basically they really thought, these kids really thought that drivers were a dime a dozen. And so they started acting that way. These companies did. Well, some of these companies have a 200% turnover rate. So how can there be a 200% turnover rate? Well, you're basically hiring 3 guys to drive 1 truck. And no, this isn't one of those England team things. I talked to the training guy. He said of all the people they contact a year, they made over 40,000 contacts a year. Of those 40,000, they got 2,200 of them to come in. Of those 2,200, they hired, 1,300 of them. And that was for a 650 truck fleet. And I was like, there's a problem here. Somebody, the math no work. and there's a retention problem. Everybody says it's a hiring problem. There's not a hiring problem at all. If you're making 40,000 contacts, there's not a hiring problem at all. If you're hiring 2,200 people for a 600 truck fleet, there's not a hiring problem. It's a retention problem. And that's something that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about the retention problem. Everybody keeps saying, well, maybe if we throw more money, we have had more money thrown at us. These guys are making twice what I was making, 3 times what I was making as a company driver. We got company drivers making 70 and 75% a mile, or 75 cents a mile. You know, I was making 25 to 28 on my first over the road job. And, which is odd because I was still bringing home decent paychecks every week. It seemed like no matter how much money I made, my paycheck always kind of flatlined, which ought to tell you something. It kind of tells a story. But so we're throwing money at these guys and bonuses and all this crazy stuff, and it's not working. Well, why is it not working? And that's the elephant in the room nobody wants to address. So I know why it's not working. You don't care about retention. All you care about is getting them in the door and throwing money at them, promising them everything. I actually got in a fight with a recruiter at my last company because I was training at the time, and over what he was telling the students. I said, you need to stop this. He says, I'm not. I said, stop. I said, I'm getting the same story from 6 different people who don't know each other and are in different classes. I'm getting it literally verbatim. And every one of them is saying, it's you. So I said, I understand you got to spread it. I said, but we're not sitting here building a road or a wall. I said, spread it thin. And you need to, was that old Wayne said, take about 10% off that. So yeah, it was really bad there for a while, but it's a retention problem. I've talked about that in some of my videos, but I may revisit it if things keep continuing the way they are. One of the things they keep talking about is they're wanting AB5 to go nationwide. And that right there would kill the owner operators as we know it. It would decimate us. We would all have to get our own insurance. We'd all have to get our own DOT numbers. We'd all have to get our own. And the reason I don't do that, and I've explained that before, is because where I'm at, there's no need to. There's no advantage for me having my own numbers and all that. I'm making great money. There's no trailer lease. And the extra 5% I would make would get eaten up in administrative costs and whatnot. And to me, it's just not worth it at this time. And on top of that, the insurance I'm paying, I get great insurance for the truck, bobtail, all that. But if you guys are wanting to get your own authority, I may one of these days do a video about that. And better. So yeah, it's doable. I mean, guys do it every day, but you have to be very careful. And truthfully, I would recommend just starting out, stay off the load boards for a while and go do power only for somebody. And you're going to laugh at when I tell you this, doing some power only for a company like Swift or England or somebody like that. The power only guys that have all their own stuff are actually making pretty good money. So that's, they're making better money than the load board guys. I'm going to tell you that right now. So if that's what you want to do and work power only, I'd say if you really wanted to do that, get into it and, spend a year, learn the business and decide maybe in a year whether you want to branch out, buy your own trailer or whatnot. And I know guys that work for companies like Landstar and Mercer and all that. I mean, if those are companies that where you can have your own trailer and work your own load board and stuff like that. From what I understand, even Schneider's that way to a point. I haven't really dug too deeply in on them, but I know a lot of guys that have worked there, and I've talked to them, and they haven't had a problem with it. But yeah, it's like I said, one of the videos I'm planning on doing here soon is about understanding your rate. I just really want people to understand what they're doing. I want new blood out in this business. But I want guys who are educated and understand their worth. Now, when I say understand their worth, not understand what people have told them they're worth. I want them to intellectually know what they are worth. I want them to have the brain power to understand what they're doing, and the education and the knowledge, because take for instance, guy I know went through a lease for a company out of Minnesota. I told him, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. He did it anyways. So I said, well, how did that go? He says, they won't give me a copy of the lease. I was like, what do you mean they won't? You have to have that in your truck. He says, until I sign the lease, they will not let me take a copy out of the building. So, okay. He said, I had some questions about it. So he said, what do I do? And he said, well, let him the lease. Well, they printed him the paragraph he wanted and only let him see that. They were not giving him full copies of it. And I found that disturbing. They wouldn't let him take a copy of it back to his hotel room to read that night. They just basically glossed over it, wanted him to sign it and send him on his way. So he signs the lease. And it's just immediately tragic. And a part of the problem that I run into a lot of these guys, these lease drivers, they're told that they're owner operators. And I guess on paper, they got a customer. But they very quickly understand that they don't have the latitude to pick and choose and decide what loads they want, what they don't. When I was at my first truck, when I had it leased on to my last company, and mind you, I was an actual owner operator. I had the truck paid for. For some reason, I was the last guy to get loaded. I was getting garbage loads. I might sit a day. And if I decided to say, I don't want that, give me something else, I'd be there until the next day. Well, that's all there is. So basically, what they were saying was, we are not forced dispatch, but their idea of not forced dispatch was take it or leave it. So you really don't want to work for those guys if you don't have to. Part of what I've been trying to get across to guys, and we're going up on an hour here, so I'm going to shut her off at an hour. But part of what these guys, I want you guys out there to understand is that financial independence is freedom. And even if you're leased onto somebody, you can still make money and you can still have the financial freedom to do what you want. But I also need you guys to know that it's not overnight. It's not instantaneous. It's going to take several years. And you're going to have to do a lot of things you don't like. And you're going to have to go a lot of places you don't like. The money I'm making now, that didn't happen overnight. I went through a lot of pain. Like I said, I bought my first truck in April of 2017. And I'm on my third truck now. And it's been I'd say the first 3 to 4 years was really tough. But I work for good people. And after a while, I started figuring it out. And I got the trucks paid for. And, you start learning how to relax a little bit and banking a little bit of money. And because, once you get your truck paid for, I'm not going to lie, you got about a year before you're going to need to start looking for another truck. And when COVID happened, like I did the video when my truck engine blew up on my old pink truck. That was an unexpected expense. And during COVID, it was in any other normal time in history, I would have just traded the truck off right then and there and been done with it. But we weren't in a normal time of history. So I ended up putting a crate engine in it. The funny story about that is the guy I sold the truck to, he's running all over western Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado with it, and into Oklahoma. And it's a beast. It's pulling bull rack. So if you ever see a pink bull rack running out there with black fenders, that's my old truck. And he loves it. It's a comfortable truck. It does everything he wants it to do, and it's got a lot of horsepower. That truck was a monster. It's pushing 600 horsepower and all the torque in the world, and 18 speed with 342s or 341s, and it's a great truck. So with this truck, I decided to go with economy, and it's taking some getting used to. And I've got the collision avoidance stuff in there, and legally I don't have to keep it. I'm learning how to drive with it because I fear that one of these days that's probably going to be mandatory on all trucks. They're doing a lot of weird stuff with trucks right now, and that's going to be a video in itself here one of these days soon. So keep an eye for that. But for you guys that watched, I appreciate it. And not a whole lot of people watched my very first live, but I appreciate the guys who were here. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. It's been about an hour, so we're gonna figure out how to turn this thing off, and I think we're done for tonight. So y'all have a good night, and we'll catch y'all.